The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Controlling emotions is crucial. Taking things personally can quickly escalate into arguments, with both parties becoming entrenched and defensive. I frequently reference Viktor Frankl, a renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, when discussing emotional control. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl explores how he mentally survived the concentration camps. One of his quotes profoundly resonated with me. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space, we have the power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. This statement from a man who endured unimaginable suffering underscores the importance of controlling our response to external stimuli. From Tell Me Everything, a Secret Service agent's proven strategies for earning trust, revealing the truth, and communicating with anyone, by Beeler. Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. Today, I have a special episode to share with you about a book that has the potential to genuinely make a difference in your life. This goes far beyond our usual true crime focus. I am excited to bring you retired Secret Service agent Brad Beeler, who's here to discuss his new book, Tell Me Everything. Now, I had some preconceived notions about what this book would cover, but I was completely surprised. I was impressed by its potential application across many areas of our life, extending well beyond law enforcement and those in the judicial system. There are numerous insights and valuable lessons that can be applied to corporations, workplace, businesses, education, parenting. At its core, the book emphasizes the importance of human communication. And Lord knows we could use a few lessons in better communicating, sharing, and listening. So a little bit about Brad Beeler. He is a retired U.S. Secret Service special agent with a 25-year career focused on high-stakes investigations and credibility assessment. Special Agent Beeler was the Secret Service agency's premier truth seeker. While he spent years on the front lines protecting President George H.W. Bush and foreign leaders, his greatest impact was made in the interrogation room. As a behavioral analysis and polygraph expert, Beeler conducted more criminal exams than anybody in the agency history, securing critical confessions in high-profile homicides and exploitation cases. He eventually transitioned from the field to the classroom, spending his final 8 years at the Center for Credibility Assessment, training thousands of FBI and CIA agents in the art of the interview. Tell Me Everything is his first book. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Simon & Schuster. So with that, let me welcome Brad Beeler to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. Hi, Brad. Welcome.
How you doing, Jill? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so excited. It was great meeting you in person in the Hamptons. I had already read your phenomenal book, Tell Me Everything, by the time I met you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And hopefully your listeners will have some stuff to pull from it, but that was a great event. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. This is a very different book. I usually cover cases, murders, investigations. This isn't exactly that. But in a way, I almost thought this is more applicable to humanity, not just true crime listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you kind of laying it out there, teasing it out there like that, because I agree is that having done thousands of criminal interrogations, I think you pick up a lot of pattern recognition as far as what makes people tick. And hopefully we can dispel some myths out there. I think, as far as deception detection, how interrogations work, what our motivations are, it's not like what you see in the movies. But also that the vast majority of people that I talk to, I don't think we're evil people. I think they were people that there was a left turn or a right turn somewhere in their life. And then kind of like an asteroid bumping them early on in their life that changed their trajectory. And of course, they did evil things, but there were very few truly evil people that I interacted with.
It sounds like, I don't want to say all of them, but it sounds like a lot of them really made impulsive, stupid decisions. And once they got in it, getting out of it was more difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Once you get in that decision-making process, you go down that road, sometimes you're locked in. I've always viewed crime from the standpoint of a mathematical equation. And this goes back to graduate school where I studied criminology, is that you look at almost any crime, Jill, and it's need plus ability plus opportunity times stress. And that's mitigated by morality and chances of getting caught. So it's almost like I take that and I reverse engineer it to come up with how I'm going to talk to them. So, for instance, drugs. If you have to need drugs, you have to be able to have an opportunity to use the drugs. You're probably going to have a stressor that's going to force you to do those things. But if you think you're going to get caught with that little angel's kind of chirping into your ear, you may not decide to do it. So I kind of try to look at every case that I do and how I talk to that person in order to get that why. I use the mathematical equation to get the why, and then hopefully that gets them to tell me the what.
Well, your book is so comprehensive. It's from your smell, brush your teeth, that first impression, how to do a proper handshake.
Yeah.
To me, it sounded very common sense, but I've learned that common sense is now a superpower. So there are really a lot of people who need to read that. They wonder why I go on an actual interview in person and have to shake hands, and they're completely thrown by it. This book can help them. I mean,
Yeah.
my nephew's graduating from college. I gave him a copy of this.
Thank you.
I said, here you go. You're going out in the real world now. Go read the book. He's like, what? That was it. That's his graduation gift. Your book.
Oh, thank you. No, that means a lot because, a lot of these kids were a product of COVID, right? They went to high school or middle school and they did everything virtual. And we start all of our conversations and we end all of our conversations with a handshake. And it needs to be dry. It needs to be warm. I put antiperspirant on my hand. I take my hand at a 2:00 position. And the reason I do that, it shows the white of my palms. And if we go back to the meaning of the handshake is very subconscious and primal. It's to show you don't have a weapon. When we were 200,000 years ago walking up on another tribe, we had to determine really quick, based upon somebody's looks, based upon their vocal inflection, based upon what was in their hands or not in their hands, is this person going to hurt me or not? So we have to learn from that. We have to almost go backwards to go forwards. And in some parts of communication, we've gone backwards. We've gone back to cave paintings and hieroglyphics with the use of emojis and LOL and JK. I mean, Shakespeare would be very disappointed in us, right? But we can learn from the past. So I try to hack all of our senses. I try to really get past that amygdala of people. And that's good for both victims, witnesses, and suspects, because this is a significant life event talking to law enforcement, even coming to a job interview. So I don't want to code neutral because neutral code's negative with them. So I want a slight eyebrow flash. I want to deepen my tone slightly. I want to kick my head to the side a little bit to expose my carotid. Those are friend signs. I want to ventrally front. I don't know, Jill, if you're a dog person or a cat person, but either way, those animals are not going to roll over and show their belly to someone they're not happy to. And to go back to that animal reference, I could go to a dog and I could get on its level. And as long as I looked, not harming to it, I could say to that dog, you're such a stupid dog. You're an idiot. And it would look at me like I'm wonderful, right? So I got to play to the primal first. And if I don't do that, it doesn't matter the fancy things that I say. It's how I say it that's so important.
I couldn't agree with you more. I am reminded of your Chihuahua story.
Yeah.
And that ties also into what you're saying, deal with the the basic levels, our evolutionary psychology, how we deal with the tribe and approaching people and creating a welcoming environment. But we also judge. We always say, oh, don't judge, don't judge. We all judge. It's wired into us to judge. So want to talk about
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that story up. It was a very painful experience in my life for a short period of time, but yeah, it speaks to something that's accurate and something that's inaccurate. So I'll kind of tease it out a little bit. So we put horns and halos on people. And once again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, as far as that tribal mentality, by putting horns and halos on people quickly in a first impression, it keeps us safe. Is that rustle in the bushes? Is that flash in the bushes? Is that something coming to eat me? Or is that a potential, mating individual in the future? I don't know. So I'm typically going to err on the side of caution. So I'm going to climb that tree. I'm going to run away. I'm going to get with other members of the tribe. I'll have a higher pitched voice to carry further in the fields to summon help. That's the way we are pre-programmed. So the problem with horns and halos, just to set the stage of this story, is that we use it in personal and professional relationships too when we don't need to. And that's when our cognitive biases kick in and overwhelm that evolutionary principle. So don't be afraid using it when your personal safety is at risk. Trust it. That's the hair on the back of your neck standing up. That's your adrenaline. Just don't use it on your first, second, third, and fourth dates, all right, or your business relationship. So partner and I are doing a search for it. This was probably 4 years ago. And we come into the kitchen and we are immediately presented with a pit bull and a chihuahua. Now, from a first impression standpoint, there are certain belief systems about pit bulls, about how they're trained, so on and so forth, that they might be mean, vicious dogs. And obviously that was operating in the back of my operating system, as far as that was my front sight focus on that this pit bull may cause harm to myself or my partner. So that was where my focus was. And by not focusing on the chihuahua, by putting a halo on it, it kind of came from behind, jumped up and grabbed me by the testicles and swung violently like I was a chew toy. And thanks to the Duluth Trading Company and their fire hose pants, definitely kept me speaking at the octave that I'm speaking at right now. So I had to holster up. My partner was laughing at me. I think the pit bull was laughing at me because the chihuahua was handling business. But it all worked out, all right? But the metaphor there being be careful about where we assign horns and halos. From a personal safety standpoint, if I would have done it the reverse and the pit bull would have been the one grabbing, I don't think that the pants would have saved me, right? So it just goes to show you that metaphor. And it also plays out in our cases too, Jill, in that I was working a biker case where we had a missing female who was dating two of the members of this bike group. One was a 1%er, and by all accounts, 6'4", 230. He had hurt people in the past. There's that belief system that 1%er is a term coined in the 50s as far as, they may make all other bikers look bad. And then there was a hangaround, 5'6", 130, looked like an accountant. Both of them were best friends, and they were both dating this girl. So it was kind of a lover's triangle. So who am I going to polygraph first? I figured we'd polygraph the 5'6" individual, and hopefully he'd give us some information. Maybe he was there, maybe he saw it. And that was my confirmation bias. Wasn't using my true first impression. I was allowing my biases to creep in because I started viewing everything through that prism and discounting anything else that could show that this guy had culpability. So he failed. I started talking to him, and everything was from the standpoint of, you were in the wrong place, the wrong time. Let me help you. I know you're afraid of this guy, but he's not here now. I protect people for a living. Boom, boom, boom. And Jill, he kept saying, that's not it. That's not it. Brad, that's not it. And I wasn't listening. I had that tunnel vision in. And luckily I had a detective outside the room, and she didn't have that confirmation bias. She just kept hearing neutrally, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. She walks in, knocks the door. Hey, you mind if I chat with him? Yep. And greatest return on any investment I've ever seen in an interrogation. She just said, all right, you're saying that's not it. Tell me what it is. And he responded with, I cut her up into 6 pieces and threw her in the river. And it was that easy. Boom. And boom. She asked the right questions. She didn't have the biases. And that's why it's a team effort, is that, it would have been nice if I'd had a partner in the room there that time that maybe wasn't culpable. So I'm always careful after that point of when I come in to consult on a case, I don't ask the people that are working that case, hey, tell me what you think. That's not why they're having me come in there. They're having me come in there with a fresh set of eyes. So I don't want their biases to potentially infect me.
That says a lot to me too, because you've written the book, and yet, like I said, we're all human. We all get caught up in our hard wiring. So you do need to stop and check yourself. What am I doing? How am I perceiving this? Am I staying neutral? And I think it's such a critically important story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. There was another story in your book that I absolutely loved, and it was about when you were on a detail for then Governor George W. Bush, and he was running for president, and you're on the campaign trail. He has an event coming up, and like right before the event is to happen, a threat gets phoned in.
Yeah, that was an eye-opening experience for me, Jill, as a snot-nosed kid. I think I had about 6 months on the job. And usually a protective intelligence gig is pretty low key. We do a lot of paperwork. We check some things out. And then on the game day, we come out and handle anybody that has any ulterior motives or makes threats or protest groups, those types of things. So the night before, this was probably 12 hours before the visit, we get a phone call and it comes into the Republican national headquarters. An individual says, I'm a sniper, former military experience. If Bush comes out, I'm going to take him out. That's the last thing, obviously, you want to hear. It's a direct threat. It's not a veiled threat, right? So we work with the phone company to find out the location of where the call came. It was a strip mall in the middle of nowhere. And luckily, I had this guy named Bill who was, I'd like to say, OG special agent. I mean, he'd been on forever and very unassuming. I hadn't worked with him before, but he said he kind of took me under his wing and said, kid, I got you. And I'll walk you through this. And we went out to the phone. He cut the phone off the old payphone. He cut the phone receiver off the hook, put it in a Ziploc bag, kicked over the trash can. I'm like, what's this guy doing? He's going through dirty diapers and food. And what are you doing? He gets all the way towards the bottom of the trash can and he sees this little cup, styrofoam cup with a yellow piece of paper in it. And he goes through it and he opens it up and it's the actual number to the Republican local headquarters. So we know that whoever made that phone call had deposited it there. So he bags that up. We start looking around like, where could this have come from? What are the chances of somebody driving here to use the payphone? It's possible, but it's usually not how it works. And you can see a bunch of smoking. It looked like it was a smoking area, a bunch of cigarette butts around. So we started looking around. The closest store was maybe a block and a half away. It was like a Publix type supermarket. And we went there and we're just talking to the manager about, do they have any employees that had roughly the same age range? We thought just from listening to the vocal tonality, you could kind of get a sense that he was somewhere between the ages of 40 and 70. So what we did in talking to the manager, we didn't have the ability to play a recording for him back then. So we just said, how many male employees do you have this age, so on and so forth. And he started looking through the employment apps. And while he was doing that, Bill was looking around the room and he could see a little yellow piece of paper that was torn next to the phone. He looked in the yellow pages. The RNC number was underlined and this styrofoam cups were from right next to the Bun coffee maker, the old school Bun coffee maker. So you knew it came from there. They pulled the employment app. I think the second one he pulled, it was the guy. He had a layover on his 2s. He had a strike through on his 7s. So we knew we had a guy. We obviously, through the employment app, had his address. So we went over there with the local PD. And Bill was just so amazing. He knocks on the door and the wife answered the door and she was very Midwestern. Hey, how you doing? And Bill's like, doing great. We'd like to speak with your husband though, please. So we identified ourselves as Secret Service agents. And she said, can I get you something to drink? And he goes, you might want to put a pot of coffee on. We might be here for a little bit. And walking in, he was very observant. He saw the military photo from Vietnam that this individual had served. He saw the wedding photo that they had been married for quite some time. And I didn't know how he was going to use that information. But when he introduced himself to the subject, he said, let's say his name is John. Hey, John, I'm Bill. This is Brad. We're with Secret Service. We do two things. We protect the President of the United States and we stop counterfeiters. Have you been counterfeiting any money recently? And the guy goes, no. He goes, well, now you know why we're here.
Genius.
Oh, it was beautiful. And then he just led up with, hey, the reason I'm chatting to you right now is I already know the what. I already know you made a phone call. That I didn't pick your name out of the yellow pages and come mess with you. I already know what you did. I just want to understand the why. And he's like, I can see a guy here that served his country and that's been married for a long period of time. So what that says to me is I got a committed man that probably said something that he didn't mean in the height of a political conversation. Is that what we're talking about? And the guy just lowered his head and gave it up. And it was just seeing mastery really led me to believe I chose the right organization because great people doing a dual role mission of investigations and protection. It all kind of came together and it was very, it made me want to get into polygraph because I'm like, I want to talk to people like this.
The Secret Service, everyone has been talking about the Secret Service with recent events that have been happening. And here, it's such a simple thing. Amateur over here. I don't even think I would have thought to go through the trash. And yet it is such genius. And then boom, this is how the clues came together. It's breathtaking that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I was thankful we put it down, but just that the stars aligned the way they did. But it was an old gumshoe detective kind of stuff, and in light of all the recent technology that we've developed, sometimes it's just that old school detective stuff that stands out.
Thank you for that. So you mentioned how you wound up getting into polygraph, which I think is fascinating to many people because they think you're detecting lies. Yeah. You're not really detecting lies.
Yeah, that's correct. You're detecting stress, and it is not perfect. We are not perfect without it. We're in roughly a coin flip without it. It gets us up into the 80s, close to 90% if done on the right person at the right time in the right headspace. So you have to be very careful about how you use it. We have very wide margins between passing and failing. So I would rather have somebody be no opinion and it not cause confirmation bias by the result. So I think in the federal government, we got really tight guardrails and quality control that make sure that we avoid misusing it. But as far as with applicants, it's the main tool that we get reportable information. And in our investigations, it's a blessing. Since 1994, we've worked with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children by congressionally mandated to support them. And our polygraph examiners in that time frame have done almost 9,000 polygraph examinations on those cases, with roughly 5,000 of those individuals making admissions to causing harm to kids. So, kids can't choose the situation that they're born into. They don't have a voice. And for us to be able to be that voice, I know it's the greatest thing that I feel like I've done from a career standpoint. And I would say if you talk to most of our polygraph examiners, they would say the same thing.
Yeah, that's so commendable. I had no idea on those numbers. And that is incredibly impressive because, polygraphs, they're fascinating, but you always hear the story. The serial killer passed the polygraph and, they condemned an innocent man. Well, we're human.
Yeah.
We do interpret things wrong. That's a pretty damn good track record.
Yeah, if you just look at the results, like we use it in a lot of cases, Jill, where somebody travels for the purposes of exploiting a child, or they have exploitive underage child images on their computer or their phone, and we do a search warrant. And since roughly 2003, our examiners throughout the field have done over 1,000 exams just in those cases. And what we've determined is 61% subsequently admitted to hands-on contact with a minor in those situations. So instead of them maybe getting probation or a very short period of time in prison and then going on and reoffend, we've been able to really, put those people away for some period of time and put a scarlet letter where it needs to be placed.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Crime is terrible. Victims are all important. But in my heart of hearts, when kids get brought into this, It just absolutely kills me.
I guess the good part about that, Jill, is it's the same feeling that law enforcement have. So when we have these investigations, it's unbelievable that countries, whether it be Russia, Iran, it doesn't matter. When you do a referral through The Hague or through Interpol to one of these countries that politically we may not agree with, they will move heaven and earth to assist you in those types of investigations. So it is definitely a universal thing as far as trying to safeguard children.
Well, that's a relief. Thank God. I'm really glad to hear that. Other things that I've noticed in your book, it's stressing the communication. You speak about active listening.
Yeah.
When I taught psychology, social psych, and active listening, Solomon Asch, conformity studies, Milgram, these were the things that I loved teaching. Because while you might know the, Freud's psychosexual stages of development, these things are going to be something that you can take away and apply and use and know in the real world as you go forward. So I like to think that by teaching my students active listening, which I want you to talk about, I may have saved their future marriages.
Yes, definitely. A couple ways to kind of tease that out is, you talk about Asch and Milgram, and that was the heyday of a lot of learning, late 60s, early 70s. I think the way we looked at being able to perform studies, it was kind of the wild, wild west, for better or worse. I don't think the Milgram experiment would go on in these days with the oversight.
No.
But it was so telling. And same thing with Ash with social proof is, it just talked about how peer pressure, can be used against you. And I see that a lot with a lot of the crimes that I investigate is a lot of times a 17 or 18-year-old kid didn't mean to go out that night and do that bad thing, but people were chirping into his ear, peer pressure, so on and so forth. That's the bad peer pressure. The good peer pressure or more the influence peer pressure would be, we're in Charleston at night and, hey, where am I going to eat tonight? Well, I'm looking around and what's got the biggest line outside the door? Well, that's social proof, right? Bandwagon effect. And that's where I'm going to go eat because if everybody's doing it, it must be okay. But we can take this into our personal life, Jill. Like I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and, if I'm going to get a surgery, who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to somebody that probably recommended that person. But if I'm consulting with that doctor and he or she has a barren office and I look up at the wall and it says they graduated medical school a couple of months ago, I'm going to be a little concerned. If I look around and I see a bunch of NFL football helmets from all the surgery she's done or he's done, and, they say, oh, I've seen this exact same thing 150 times. What does that say? Same thing when we're just talking to people. There's nothing you can say that I haven't heard a million times before, Jill. That automatically puts you at ease. If you went into the Catholic confessional and you said something and the priest said, really? Man, that's the first time I've heard that. You're going to clam up, right? But if the priest says, okay, it's all right. I've heard that a million times. It happens. You hate the sin, you love the sinner, and that social proof can really help further conversations by not judging. I want to be curious, not judgmental, the famous Ted Lasso quote. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I can't help but flashing back to the last time I went to confession. You're saying that.
Oh boy. Sorry for the shell shock there.
No, I'm fine. It wasn't that bad. Honestly, I have a rather boring life.
The GLP-1 pill you've been waiting for is now on Ro. Yep, it's finally here. With the same clinically proven ingredient, now in a pill, and now on Ro. It's the first FDA-approved GLP-1 pill for weight loss at the lowest price available. That's one daily GLP-1 pill for big results. Now on Ro. Go to ro.co/listen to see if you qualify. RX only. Go to ro.co/safety for serious side effects and boxed warning associated with GLP-1s.
So you've got years and years of experience. You're pulling together, I called it layers of an onion, because there's so many techniques. Like I said, from your sense of smell to not judging, your social cues, how you sit, using your right ear, leaning into conversations. Is this a little intimidating for someone who's trying to learn and embrace these techniques?
I think as long as you take bite-sized chunks of it, and the good part about it is it's human behavior, a lot of which we already know. So it's going to be easier for you to take in, so to speak, than if it was some random thing that, where's this coming from? So for me, frontal alignment, leaning forward, it shows interest, but it's also a confession posture. And I don't mean confession in a bad way. I just mean, so people will open up to you. If I'm turned away and not looking away and I've got my phone in my hand and I have anchor points, my arms and legs are crossed, that's going to show I don't really care about what you have to say. But when I look at you and I have soft eyes, and the key thing to soft eyes, and your listener won't be able to see my eyes now, but the way you do soft eyes is you raise your eyebrows and then you drop them. Those are soft eyes. And soft eyes denote non-judgment. It's not what a predator's eyes. Too many times people have these New York subway eyes. They don't want to be bothered. Well, that's judgment. And even if you don't mean it, it's coding negative and people don't want to open up to you. The next thing is, when we're on the phone, Jill, if we were talking and you were talking on the phone and I couldn't see you, every once in a while I'd say, yep, okay. Why? Because that minimal encourager would let you know that I'm still on the phone with you. What I'm doing right now and what you just did was you gave me that two little nods, and that lets me know that you're listening. And I can't really see with your bangs because I can't really see your eyebrows too great, right? There you go. I got it now. So when I can see the eyebrows, that helps me because when you see the furrow of the eyebrow, that lets me know you didn't understand. And so I need to clarify, or I need to slow down, or I need to change tact because you didn't like that. That was the third rail that I touched and you didn't like that. Also, when I'm listening, when you truly say active listening, if you were going on like a 1-minute story, I would want to almost repeat back in my head every verb that you say. And it's almost every fifth word. And the reason I do that is it slows me down because we can listen at about 400 words per minute while people talk at 150 words per minute. And we get lazy and we start thinking about what am I going to say next? When should I say it? And the other thing about active listening is that you need to view it like jazz. There's a lot of times where, and I'm sure you experience this as a podcaster, you have your set list of questions, right, Jill? Mm-hmm. Where, you know what, not that you're always going to ask that because you've done, this is not your first rodeo. But what a bad podcaster does is 1, they talk too much. 2, they make it about them. 3, they don't do their research. So a good podcast is good conversation. They prep on the front end. They have a good first impression. We've met before, but we also talked in the green room a little bit beforehand. Mm-hmm. You let me talk about 80% of the time. You clarify anything that your listeners may not understand. If I go down a rabbit hole, you tease out things that in the moment sound interesting and you advocate for me. That's a good conversation, just like it is a good podcast, right? So I want you to think from an active listening standpoint of the hardware and the software. The hardware is my body language. It's my facial tone. It's the soft eyes. It's the way I cant my body or my ventral fronting. It's me using my head. And then the software is me understanding that, once again, it's for them, but there may be something I think I want to say right now, but think of jazz. The drummer or the jazz musician or the trumpet just went somewhere else and I need to follow it and I need to go where they're going. And if you do that, you keep the spotlight on them. You make it not about you. And the last part about making it not about you is when you say something interesting about what you're doing in your free time or what you're doing this weekend, if I have a commonality with that, the worst thing I can do is say me too. So I love to talk leisure activities because that's what people, that's what truly defines people. So let's do this. Jill, what do you like to do in your free time? In a perfect world, if work wasn't an issue, childcare wasn't an issue, whatever the case may be, you could choose what you wanted to do. And I say this because Mother's Day a lot of times is a day for people to just do what they want to do, the mothers out there. In a perfect world, what do you like to do in your free time?
I like to hang out with my granddaughters.
Okay.
And just let them be them. Mother's Day is wonderful, but it's that special occasion thing.
Yeah.
I want to watch them color pictures.
Okay.
On an off day. It's just life. I live in Pennsylvania. They're in New Jersey, so I don't get to see them all the time. So given a perfect day, I'd have a little teleport and I'd pop up there and help them do homework and, play with the puppy and do all that.
Okay. And in a perfect world, if we were doing an interview, I would tease that out a little bit more because you smile when you talk like that. Once again, the listeners can't see you smile. They can't see the oxytocin release, the serotonin, the dopamine. When you're thinking about your little granddaughters coloring, it makes you happy. But more importantly, your cortisol is going to come down. Your heart rate's going to come down. So your ability to provide me information, whether you're a victim, witness, or suspect, is going to be much better. And metaphorically, I'm going to be putting a halo on myself. Not that I'm doing that from an ulterior motive, but I want to get you in the right headspace where information exchange can happen, because my goal is to get the truth. And if I don't come in with confirmation bias, up to this point, I don't know if I'm talking to a good person or a bad person. I just want that person to have a safe space that they can come forward and provide me information. So active listening is making it about them, and it's about the hardware and the software. So once again, what I do with my body and what I do with my mind, and making it about them. If I have a universal interest, let them tease it out. Ask them, why is it important to them? What's their favorite moment regarding that? And not make it about me. Because if they say they like to run and I like to run, and I immediately say me too, I just put a wet blanket on that conversation. Ask them informed questions, and eventually they'll say, oh, do you like to run too? And now we get the best of both worlds.
I agree with you. And thank you for that, because while I was talking to you about the girls, I could feel that warm fuzzy.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. If you're trying to get the truth from people, you have to make them comfortable. You want them to have that warm fuzzy. Now, you're talking about like getting information from people. I'm picturing them in an interrogation room or something like that. You talked also about having a nice interrogation room, as opposed to it has the hook to chain the handcuffs to. I'm sitting here listening to you thinking about parents trying to find out really what's going on at that party. Did you have, instead of, well, tell me what happened there. I know something went on. You came home. You smelled like beer. Give them the warm fuzzies. You want them to be able to confide and to talk and to share these things. That's why I said this book is for humanity. It's not just, people who are in law enforcement or, polygraphers, or it really can apply to so many things. I laughed as I was going through this. I said, this is a dating guide.
Yes, it is.
It's probably the last thing on your mind when you were writing this. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, it's a guide for dating. This is how you make your first impression. This is how you engage and give the other person warm fuzzies so they want to see you again. Here's how you're non-judgmental, because you may be missing somebody if you look at them with confirmation bias or however, our wiring kicks in. I thought you would laugh. You did. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. There's two things to that, Jill. So first off, I laugh because I'm thinking about my son because he's a senior in college and he read the book and he goes, Dad, man, he goes, this thing works. He goes, I got all my buddies buying it because I go to the bar. I let the female that I'm dating talk 80% of the time. And I ask her, things about leisure activities, and she brings up hot yoga. And I go down the rabbit hole asking about hot yoga. And then 10 minutes later, she's like, oh my God, you're such a good listener. And he goes, I just take the spotlight off of me. I don't need the validation, Dad. I just, and I have no ulterior motives, but the way I smell, the headspace I try to get myself into, the headspace I get them into, things I follow up on, active listening. I talked about every fifth word. It's almost like in the movies, you see a machine gun fire and every fifth bullet is a tracer. If you think of listening as really repeating back in your head every fifth word, it makes you present. And then you do follow-up little questions to what they just said. And it could be with an exclamation point or a question mark. I can say, wow, that made you sad? And I can say it with an upward pitch. And what that says is I want them to answer that because I don't know if it made them sad or not. But if I said, it made you sad, I said that with a downward inflection, like an exclamation point, I'm just validating and I sense that it made them sad. And I'm just putting some gasoline on that disclosure. So little things like that are so easy to do when you think about it, and good communicators are great with that.
Oh, 100%. I would sit and have my students practice active listening. And we would listen to the conversation and critique it, and then we'd practice. And we did all of that. When you say to someone, you're listening to a story and you sit there and say, wow, that sounds like it really made you sad. If you said the wrong emotion, they will fix it. So how many times are we talking with people and we've misheard, misconstrued, they haven't presented exactly the point they wanted to make, and we are now operating from a position where we've got the wrong information. If you're active listening, you're saying, wow, I'm hearing you say that this is really threatening and you really don't like that. They will come back and say, no, it's not that, it's this. Yep. And you get rid of this baggage that never has to exist.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I always like to say, sometimes I like to stay neutral because sometimes in elicitation, people do what's called an intentional misstatement, where we'll say something and people always like to correct misstatements. So like you said there, that must have made you mad or that must have made you sad, and they're wrong and they'll correct you. And that's true. And it clarifies something, but almost in the back of their mind, they're thinking, how did you not pick up on that? Or how did you miss that? Or it almost calls into question, were you listening or are you competent? So if I don't really know, like if the tea leaves aren't giving me a really good idea, I'll say, I can't imagine. Oh my gosh, that must have been so difficult. How did that make, what were you thinking? Like what was going on in your mind during that time frame? And then they'll walk me to I was so sad. And so now I let them give it and I don't do the misread. But I like what you're saying in that if you have that relationship with them, you don't have to worry about that. The problem is so many people that I talk to, this is a one-off. It's the first time I'm gonna meet them. It's the last time I'm gonna meet them, except if it's at court. So as a result of that, I can't be wrong that many times because then they start looking at me like, does this person know what they're doing? That makes sense.
How could it be that far off? Yeah, I get you. Yep. I hear that. I'm thinking more like the couple that's, fighting over money or, these kinds of issues. But I see in a situation like that where this is not someone you have a relationship with, you're working to get information and find out what happened. Because you talk about lie detection. There were so many things that I thought, and you said, no, there's myths that are inaccurate, and that's important. I would imagine you're talking to a police officer in his office. I imagine you're going to be a little nervous. That doesn't mean I'm lying. It means I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. And sometimes police officers think that, and they've been taught that by no fault of their own, that you look for these nervous tics. And sometimes you have somebody that's never been in trouble before, or they have a lot to lose. They're going to be nervous. You look at Amanda Knox's case, right? That's a perfect example of police misreading a situation and having confirmation bias, and that she had lost the only person that she knew roughly in that country, her roommate, to a horrific murder. And who is she going to self-soothe with? Her boyfriend. She's going to make out and hug her boyfriend because she's in a foreign country. She has no one else. So it's all about perspective versus perception, right? Is that their perception was that that's guilty behavior. Why would someone do that, right? But they're not looking at, her perspective of things. And if they would have done that, they would have said, what would I do in that situation? And that's what you need to ask yourself a lot of times. And body language is very bad about that. Body language, what we use it for is comfort, discomfort, as far as reception of message. Did that go over well? Did that not land? That type of stuff. The next thing, that people have is eye contact. People think that, eye contact is, they didn't look at me in the eyes, so they're deceptive. Liars know this too. And a lot of times they will really look you in the eyes because they think that means they're coming off as honest. So eye contact is something that definitely is not. All those nervous tics, touching the nose, touching this, touching that. There is no Pinocchio effect. Now, I will say about the Pinocchio effect, people don't want to get caught lying. So there's that inner cognitive dissonance. There's that drive. There's that spotlight effect. With a polygraph, I can see into your body. Without the polygraph, the same mechanisms are happening around yes or no questions. It's just, how does it manifest itself? And it may be in an exclusive statement, like usually, normally, typically. It may be in a lie sandwich where you give truth in the front end, you lie, and then you give truth on the back end. It may be in delay. And that would be such as, if you ask me, did I shoot that man? And I say, did I shoot that man? I'm delaying by asking the question. That was an easy question. Or if you're asking me multiple questions and my stimulus to answer latency is a quarter second, and then all of a sudden it's a half second. If you listen for that, you hear it. It's no, no, no. Very subtle. But when you listen for it, the inflection of no, no, no. Once again, it's very subtle. But when I ask my daughter, did you clean your room? Yes. That's do you believe me? Yes. Did you get all your homework done? I got all my math homework done. Oh, that was really specific. Right? I think there's another topic there that she didn't get her homework done. So yeah, in the book, I have a acronym that I kind of call the C's, where I kind of go through all those: the delay, the equivocation, the lack of commitment, the inserting truthful information around a lie, the shaking the head yes while they say no, or vice versa. It's a unicorn moment. You very rarely see it, but when you do, they were so worried about what they were going to say, and they didn't line up the body language to go with it, which is an issue. And then also the emotional inconsistency. I mean, you see this in the R. Kelly video, but you see this a lot, where the barometer of someone's human behavior, very few people are laughing and crying at the same time. You can't do it. All right. You can be crying because you're laughing so hard, but you can't go back and forth. It's not like an on and off switch. So whenever I see violent outbursts, or I see emotion that just came out of nowhere when it doesn't need to be there, that's when I put what's called a check engine light on. There's no 100% in this world.
Yeah.
It's check engine, and let's pop the hood and let's look a little bit deeper. If you look at lie detection like that, you're less likely to make these BS TikTok snap decisions on, they're lying. It just doesn't work like that.
You have to take the whole picture in and put yourself, I think, in the context of, like you said, in the Amanda Knox case. Where are they coming from? Which is where the warm fuzzies come in, all of that. It's genius the way it all comes together. You spoke about tattoos
Mm-hmm.
as kind of, you didn't call it an icebreaker, but I'll call it an icebreaker.
Yeah.
So see someone has liked something so much, is so important to them that they have permanently put this on their body. And there was a young man that you were talking with, and he had, I think it was respect and power or force.
Yeah. Force. Yeah.
Tattooed on his arms. And you used that to figure him out, understand him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just kind of complete with what you're saying is, if I would ask this question to people 20 years ago, even when I was teaching, and say, how many people in the room have a tattoo? I might get 3 or 4 people out of 30. Now I get half the class. And usually it's very personalized. It's so artistic. It's not somebody going typically and just pointing at the wall at the tattoo shop and saying, put that on my body. There's thought that goes into it, right? I have detectives now that have tattoos that they use when they theme people, because it's a life story. It's a message that they use. But I've seen a lot of cases where I just ask them and I say, hey, what is that? And that's beautiful, right? And by saying that's beautiful, you're validating the decision they got for it. And then I want them to tell me the story. Hey, do you mind telling me the story behind that? Trust me, they want to teach you. They want to tell you. And a lot of times you really get a sense of a death in the family. This was when they were going through a hard time with addiction. They were in prison, whatever, but they're telling you something that is a bookmark in their life that I can maybe riff on later. And in this case that you brought up, sadly, we had a young girl that was killed by a stray bullet. And this individual, through the use of certain questions that I ask and case facts, was definitely the individual involved. And I'm trying to understand the why and trying to get the what. And in talking to him, I just he had also a full chest piece of his grandma who had raised him. And I just kind of looked down and I said, look, I think in this situation, you got the word respect on your hand. I think you were disrespected. And I think in situations like this, sometimes force is an option. I think it's hard for me to walk in your shoes and say what you should have done. But speaking of walking in your shoes, and then I pointed at his chest piece. I said, I know what grandma would want you to do right now, because she taught you right and wrong. And she would want you to discuss this, and she'd want to put this to an end. And he just put his head down, started crying, and gave it up. And so just trying to use those bookmarks to get him to write that next page was very helpful.
Yeah, I thought that was such a powerful story. A completely different level. When I was teaching, this is 20 years ago, very few tattoos, but girls got their nails done.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever was going on at this time, I had this one student, long, beautiful, dark hair, beautiful, beautiful girl. She's failing everything. And I'm like, what's with this kid? So I saw the nails. I went, okay. So when I got my nails done the next week, I mimicked her absolutely horrible but garish style. Well, she perks up, and after class, she comes up, she goes, we love your nails. And we had this discussion on nails. And do you know she got a B?
Yeah.
I got my nails done.
Yeah.
But it was a hook. It brought her into us talking. I wasn't just that teacher, World War II, blah, blah, blah. I became this person. She knew we had this in common. She passed my class.
Yeah, I love that story, Jill, and it makes me think about, do you have any sports teams that you follow specifically?
I might be in danger here because I live near Philadelphia, but I follow the Giants.
Okay. So let's say this, you've got your Giants hat on or your Giants jersey on, theoretically, right? Theoretically, if you happen to be a fan of the Giants. If you were walking around the Meadowlands, if you were walking around Manhattan and you on game day have your Giants jersey on, nobody's going to look, give you a second thought. If you're in Flagstaff, Arizona on Sunday and you've got your Giants jersey on and you see another Giants fan, you'll definitely get like a head nod. Like, hey, man, big game, right?
Absolutely.
If you're in Azerbaijan and you run into another Giants fan, you're best friends.
That happened to me. I've been to Azerbaijan, and it wasn't the Giants, but it was like, whoa, and the connection was instant.
Yes. Well, there you go. You see that? Did you see how your eyes light up when you were saying that story?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I didn't know you'd ever been to Azerbaijan or there was somebody you connected with. But typically language, if we're in a foreign country and somebody speaks English, oh my gosh, you're my best friend. But imagine if you have a mutual interest. And for me, I'm in a foreign land with somebody, i.e. an interrogation room. And now I'm finding that Giants jersey, metaphorically speaking, right? And once you do that and you connect with people, it's just like what you said with those nails. And you can get somebody that for her, she felt like a foreigner in that classroom until she saw somebody like you that made the effort to connect with her. And then now, once again, now she starts applying herself. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. Yeah. She had a brain. I feel like she was one of my success stories.
That's
that
awesome.
you want to bring them all. I want to teach everybody and lift everybody up, but that stood out in my mind. I want to ask you to segue. You do training in these techniques. You have, I don't need to know names, but like your A++ student who took to this like a fish to water.
It's interesting. So kind of dovetailing off of what you just said with that student that you connected with, you probably had better students, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you had something in that student that you connected with and you had them level up immensely, meaning she's not your best student. Right?
Nope.
Right. So when you say A++, yeah, I was blessed. I had some A++, absolute amazing students, but most of them had attributes that I just helped a little bit. I nudged them. Maybe I armed them, but they were already a sports car, so to speak. I can think of one student that wasn't that sports car, and they were your student that got the B. But my student coming in, I thought there's no way this person's going to get through the class. And I had several like this, but one in particular that I got them to be a B. And that's what I'm most proud of. Just like in cases, I know we talked beforehand, like talking about some big cases. Okay, those are the big cases. Those are great. The cases that I loved were everybody thought somebody did it and I cleared them and it got them out of jail. And it turned out they had nothing to do with it. And they might have been in jail for years, if for not that, or vice versa. Like, to me, it wasn't about the double homicide, the triple homicide, the bad person that took advantage of those kids. Yeah, those are great cases, right? But it's the cases in which somebody is so afraid and people had confirmation bias and it's he said, she said, and there's no way they feel like they can prove it. And you come in there and you create the right environment where that person can prove that they were falsely accused. Those are some of the best days for me.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. That is so powerful. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing you want to see as you're pursuing justice is you're creating injustice.
Correct. Yeah. False confessions, all this stuff happens. And it happens a lot of times in cases that are very high profile because these detectives want to put this down. And everything's video recorded now. So the days of people, I think a lot of false confessions are just from lack of knowledge out there and from biases and from people wanting to do the right thing, but they don't understand the impact of their actions. So I'm very careful with juveniles. I don't lie. I don't make up evidence. I'm very, very careful about having holdback evidence and making sure that I can prove when they do tell me that they have hidden case facts. All this stuff is so important to make sure that we don't get false confessions and also creating that right environment. It's not like what you see in the movies with the dangling light and tell me what you did. I have conversations with people. And once again, I'm not lying to them. I'm not disrespecting them. Many of these times we're breaking bread together and we're eating and drinking and just having a conversation where you'd be surprised at how many times people have never been spoken to like a human being. And when you speak to them like a human being, they will open up. And it goes back to Hans Scharf, who was a Luftwaffe interrogator in World War II. And the perception was that if you were an Allied service member and you were about to land in Germany via parachute, that bad things were going to happen to you. And Scharf showed that to be completely different. He spoke with people with respect. He got them into the emergency room. He did what he had to do. He was trying to obtain information, but he did it respectfully. And as a result, U.S. service members that had been interrogated by him sponsored his citizenship after World War II to become a U.S. citizen. So,
whoa.
I want to treat everybody like my mentor told me. Treat them and make them better off for having met you. Don't disrespect people and try to get a Christmas card at the end of the year. And he would get Christmas cards as an FBI agent sent to the field office the next year from jail. But he treated people with such respect that they knew in that moment he was doing a job, they were doing a job, but he did it with respect.
Bingo. There it is. Thank you for sharing that. So, Brad, we're starting to wind up here. Is there anything else you want to share? I want to know what's coming next.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you asking that, Jill. No, I wrote this originally as a law enforcement book, and I wanted cops because of the budgetary constraints, hopefully learn from some of the mistakes that I'd made over the years and not repeat them, because that's how we learn. We learn from their mistakes. It's like my jujitsu professor says, you win and you learn. You don't win and lose. You learn from your losses, and that's what I've hopefully done. And I tried to put all this together by taking the science and then putting the anecdotes behind the science and trying to make science interesting. Too many times in these endeavors, people write a science book about communication. I don't want to read a science book about it. Or they write an anecdotal book. It's just a bunch of, here's what I believe, but there's no science behind it. So that's what I tried to do. And I had a great editor that thankfully she said, hey, this is a communication book. This is not a law enforcement book. And we were able to tease it out. And hopefully it lands to where there's a kid at 2 a.m, because his parents had created this space where he can talk to them, that he's not afraid to call his parents at 2 a.m. and say, hey, I had a few too many to drink. Can you come pick me up? Or a supervisor that truly has not only just an open door policy, but an open door philosophy to their communication, and can maybe learn some things from these to have a better team. Or you brought up marriages earlier, that a husband can learn how to listen to his wife, or vice versa. So that was my goal, and hopefully it ends that way. And moving forward, I want to write another one about critical communications. And after this dropped, it was really impressive for me how many people in sales and negotiation and things like that kind of reached out and said they enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to kind of really try to focus on that in the next book, and we'll see where it goes. But I appreciate it. Once again, it's an honor talking to you.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for writing it, for being on the podcast. This has been such an illuminating conversation. I just think so many people are going to benefit from this.
Thank you. Yeah, if people want to reach out, bradleybeeler.com or bradbeeler1865, both on Instagram and LinkedIn. I try to put a lot of content on there. So if anybody, has any questions or has any requests, feel free to reach out.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I hope you will enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go off and active listen.
Paint your nails.
Paint my nails. Exactly. Go check out some tattoos and go out and hopefully make the world a little bit better place.
Well, thank you, Jill.
Thank you. You have a good one now. Bye-bye. Murder Bookies, I hope you enjoyed my discussion with Brad Beeler, and perhaps you even picked up a few tidbits about how to improve your interactions with family, friends, and coworkers. I wasn't kidding when I said that his book is a guide for humanity, not just law enforcement, and I think you heard that from him as well. Tell Me Everything is out. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Simon & Schuster. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate you joining me on this journey through some of the best true crime books. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a positive 5-star review. My sources, photographs, and information are on my blog at www.murdershelfbookclub.com, July 2025. You can contact me at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com or connect with me on X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Additionally, you can join my Patreon for $2 to $4 a month to help me choose the next book I'll feature. And I am doing my serial killer case studies. My next episode will be out shortly. I see you as you hear me. Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved. Music, The Pewter Elephant by Blue Dot Sessions.